Hello and welcome back to the Uneducated PT podcast. Today I'm joined by the very handsome, very wise Bruce Robertson, a health and fitness coach, helping people in their 40s and 50s redefine what midlife looks like and feels like. Knowing Bruce personally, I can say he's a 10 out of 10 coach and a 10 out of 10 human. So I'm looking forward to having this conversation with you. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Carl. How you doing?
Doing very well. So what I'm gonna ask you to talk first and foremost about addiction, escapism, and recovery as well, because I was listening to your podcast that you did with our good friend Adam as well, all about even your relationship with cocaine. And I was even
Mm.
I was actually I pulled up a few stats on this as well because I thought it was quite interesting. So wastewater analyst estimates that Londoners consume around 23 kg of pure cocaine per day, amounting to over 500,000 doses. This makes London the top consumer among European cities for cocaine use.
Isn't that interesting? Because they said like they're pure cocaine, and like from my experience, the majority, or my prior experience, I should say, like the majority of cocaine in London isn't fucking far from pure. So
Yeah.
if that's what they picked up from the wastewater, the actual volume of actual in inverted commas cocaine that people are doing must just be staggering.
Yeah, it's much more than that,
Like.
but I presume that's the only way that they can.
Yeah, that's what they're looking for. They're picking up on, yeah, because it's cut with all sorts of,
Yeah,
benzocaine and all sorts of, and then now because of like designer drugs, I imagine that actually, quite a lot of the stuff on the street now, people are. Well, I actually know from experience. Let's get into it because I've had a couple of run-ins with the law.
hmm
Um, my first run in with the law, I was living in London, and I was just doing it every weekend, and it actually started to creep into the week, which is when I finally realized like I need help. So, and that's when I called a helpline, went to a meeting, and then started my nearly 3 years of sobriety, doing the 12 steps, yada yada yada.
hmm
But like when I went into the Nick. So they collared me. They collared me of all things. They caught a bike on a cop. Sorry, a copper on a bike. Um, and he came round the corner. His colleague said we call him like the eagle because he's got such a good eye. And basically, he came round the corner, and I was like crouched down, and I was like putting it in my sock. I just got out of the car of this like Eastern European guy who like I used to call, and he said, "What are you putting in your sock there, mate?" And I looked up at him just like, "You have to be kidding me." And anyway, so what I was putting in my sock was obviously cocaine. But then when they took me down to the police station, they said, we run this through our machine, and we can tell you that actually it's only like 1%, or it's not even really cocaine." So
Wow.
I sort of turned around to them and was just like, "Does that mean I can go?" They were like, "No, very much not, because you told us that that's what it is." And so,
Yeah.
I think even, like that is enough for them to go, look, possession. So I mean, I got a caution, but I spent a night in Wandsworth
Yeah.
cell in a bloody tuxedo of all things as well. How glamorous is that? But yeah, happy to talk about that. Yeah. So what? Escapism, addiction. Wow, those are some
Well, I
quite.
suppose I suppose from your personal experience and some from because like I know for myself here in Dublin and just outside of Dublin and Wicklow, like cocaine is rife. Obviously, it used to be the middle class drug back in the day,
Mm.
and now it's pretty much everywhere. And you go to the kind of any kind of pub or nightclub, and you'll see lads just queuing up in the toilets to take a piss. And like I'm just wondering like why in London in particular is it so prevalent and so high? Is it the culture, the environment, the fast city paced life?
I mean, I think like it's probably, case by case, right? I think people find these things, in their own kind of way. But I think if I'm going to make like any kind of sweeping kind of statement on it
Yeah.
based on my experience, and by the way, thanks very much for the intro. I do have quite a lot of wisdom, but my wisdom comes from my experience. I
Yeah.
don't, um, but and the handsome face comes from my mum and dad. Hi, mum and dad. My mum will like that if she listens to this. So, yeah, I think from my experience, having kind of gone through the ringer and removed myself from London as an environment, London is a melting pot of activity, and it's a stressful place. So everybody has like serious jobs, and of course they do because they're having to have a salary which pays for the cost of living, and that's
Mm.
including their properties. Um, but also, I think like there's a lot of people, and it's dense. And I think as human beings, I just don't think our nervous systems are necessarily, or anything about us is necessarily designed to kind of like, live in that kind of like environment, because our nervous system is obviously, and this is, it's obviously linked to stress. The reason why I bring up the nervous system is designed to kind of keep us safe. And so, you know, any kind of perceived threats. So the nervous system is constantly, reading information, and so if you're in London, people are walking at you, past you. Most people have good intentions, but some people don't.
Mm.
You just got to kind of like have your wits about you, I guess. But that's, if you think about it, that's placing a lot of stress. It's kind of like the opposite of like when you're walking in a meadow and you can see as far as the eye can see,
Mm.
there's nothing around you. And everybody knows that feeling of just feeling really calm and relaxed, and it's because there's your nervous system is basically just going like, sweet, like there are no perceived threats here. I can really chill out. So I think but then I think also there's like I think it's like a fashion statement. I think sometimes, myself included, I was that prat in bars telling people what I did for a living, and they were sort of like glazing over because they're not fucking interested. And I was giving it the big one, and, how much money I make. And, doing cocaine was kind of like, part of that, because, it does have this sort of glamorous thing, identity from maybe, I don't know, the 80s and
Mhm.
or whatever. Like, but I think like, I think that the reason why, yeah, I think that's the reason why it's kind of like so, so prevalent. But also, I think what people also don't realize is that you get actually addicted to, and I think this was me in particular, you get addicted to the mix of alcohol and cocaine. So it
Mm.
produces a certain chemical, and so that's where I think most people get dependent on it. So they go and have a few drinks, and then they will want to then, get on the gear.
Mm.
And they don't understand why that's happening every time they drink. And it's because they're introducing this alcohol, and then that the body's craving this chemical that then is. So, because I never sniffed it like dry. I
Yeah.
always had a few drinks in me, and then it was just like, right, game on. So yeah, I think that's why, as a sweeping statement, obviously individual to individual, people they might not be it might not be the stress of their surroundings that they're escaping. There might also be some kind of like trauma
Mhm.
or something. And I'd use trauma with like a small t as well as a big T,
Yeah.
some whatever stuff that like is going on for them that they're just a bit insecure about or not happy about. And, cocaine, obviously, for anyone who's tried it, and if you haven't, please don't. But like, it does, produces a lot of serotonin and happiness, which then dulls, allows you therefore to escape from whatever this residual sort of thing is that you might not be consciously aware of, that's sort of like weighing you down a little bit. It kind of, so it's really, it's really fucking dangerous.
Yeah, that's such a good point about the alcohol as well, because like I see it even in friends. It's like the minute they take a sip of a pint, they're like, "All right, let's get a bag." And there's
Yeah.
that meme online, and it's like your first beer, and it's like that little person behind your ear saying, "Bag, bag, 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 bag."
Oh
uh,
man, like, yeah, I mean, I like, I was trying all sorts of stuff like to stop doing it. One of the things, I signed up for a marathon. I signed up, so
mm,
I got sober in 2017, and I signed up to the Edinburgh Marathon, which was in May. I actually ended up getting an injury, and so I had to move it to the next year. I did actually finally complete that marathon, funny enough, sober.
mm.
Funny how like training for a marathon becomes so much easier when you're not doing cocaine every single fucking week. But like, so I signed up to this marathon, and I remember one day, it's so funny that you say that bag thing, because I was with my mates. We went to see, my team is Spurs. Sorry if that's turned a load of people off, but like, so my team is Spurs for my sins, and and we were playing Watford, and we hammered them 4-1. And we went to the pub, and I'd just done like a hill run that morning as part of my training plan. So like, I was like pretty exhausted. I had like, and so the last thing really that was on my mind is like, doing cocaine. But I went to the pub to watch the game. I had a couple of beers, and then we won, and so we're all in a state of hysteria. And then it was literally, and then we just, how can we make this better in inverted commas?
Mm,
Um, by the way, it did not make the next few days better. It made them like, horribly worse. And of course, this is the trade-off that we all know. It was that, robs from tomorrow, doesn't it? But like, and then we all came steaming out the pub, and we were singing bag, 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 to that No Limit song. And I remember that now, just like, what am I doing? And like, and so we went on until I probably went on until like 4 in the morning, and then probably had a rest day the next day. And then the day after that, I had to get back out and run again. And it was just like,
uh,
it was just, yeah, it was just crazy. And it was just, all I had to do was just introduce alcohol. And no matter how many times I'd said, like, no, I'm not doing it, I'm not doing it, I'm not doing it. Which is why, obviously, like the program of recovery,
yeah.
no matter what drug you're trying to sort of battle with, the solution is abstinence. It's like,
Mhm.
you need to take alcohol out, because alcohol obviously is an uninhibitor. We all know, right? It will make you do things that, like, sober, you just wouldn't even dream of doing. Whatever it might be, as something silly as dancing on the tables, which I know you like to do. Because I heard your podcast where you talked about your nice weekend where you're all dancing on the table. Sounds fun, by the way. Or it could be as daft as, like, yeah, like, going on a mad all-nighter when you've got like some important family meal the next day.
Yeah.
It's just, like, it just kind of, makes you, your executive functioning just goes out the window. Your
Yeah.
decision making is just like, this is an impulse which felt good, I'm gonna fucking do it.
Mm,
So but also, yeah, I think people do get addicted to the mix, which I don't think is really widely understood. I think that's actually what I was addicted to. I don't think I was addicted to cocaine. I was addicted to the mix of alcohol and cocaine. I wish I could remember what the chemical was it produces, but anyway, it's not important. The nerds
that's
can go and look that up.
Yeah, I had an ex-girlfriend, and she moved over to London for a few months, and she got like a corporate job. And I remember her when she was coming back, she was saying to me about like how literally like it was a Friday, and like everyone in the office was straight on it, like bags in the office and everything else. And I was like,
Did she
uh,
work in like media or something sexy like that, or like
I don't think it was me. I think it was property.
surely not? Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
Yeah,
can imagine. Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Anything salesy, anything like, I think in banking, obviously it's rife.
yeah.
I think, yeah, anything where, yeah, where there's kind of like, and anything, to be honest, where there's quite a lot of ego at play, because
Mm,
I think, you know, yeah, because again, what do you do? What do you do when you take it? You just talk about like yourself and like your fucking what you do for work, and like, or whatever your political views are. You just, just grandstand in someone's kitchen. It's just like,
mm,
it's like, yeah, it definitely gets hold. It brings out something in people's egos, which I don't think is necessarily pleasant. I mean, particularly, yeah, I look back on some of my behaviors and the way I conducted myself in the world, and it was just like, oh, it was just all about me. I didn't care about anybody else, even though these people I loved dearly, like family, partners, friends, whatever, just like nobody would get in the way of, my cocaine use. It was just makes me sends a
amazing.
shiver down my spine now thinking about it.
What would you say to someone listening who like thinks they've got it under control? Because like obviously you've heard my messaging as well. It's like I'm very much not the messaging of for everyone
Mm,
everywhere and you need to go cold turkey, and like obviously you have this hustle culture. We have so many parading about like 15-year-old kids who never even experienced life telling everyone about how they don't drink and they run with their top off and all this, and like that kind of I just get something from that. But then also from the other side, because I like I've had addiction in my own family, so I've seen it firsthand of how much it can impact. And then like sometimes with my messaging it can get misconstrued to like it's okay for everyone to have a drink. Well, when I like obviously having a drink
yeah,
can have a great impact on the social environment that you're in with your friends.
totally.
There's no doubt about that. But then I also have friends who I'm looking at and being like, maybe you shouldn't have an alcoholic drink.
Like, but this is the thing, like, right, so like there's no need to be dogmatic about
Hmm.
this stuff. Like it's really complex, it's really nuanced, and it's individual to individual. There is no hard and fast like rule that everybody should fucking adhere to. Like,
Yeah.
it's down to your individual, preference. Like I have is a kind of industry colleague of mine, a guy Eddie. He goes by Mango Man Movement, fucking legend, and he coached me. Um, he runs like a men's group, and he coached me. He kind of coaches people in terms of he's kind of like a life coach, but like
Hmm.
he's got a sort of element to him, which is a sort of spirituality element. But like, if you met this guy, he's not very woo woo. He's from Brixton, but he discovered yoga and he's discovered certain practices. And then now he, having experienced the benefits, he likes to try and share them with other people. And there is big benefits. So people, so people pay him money for his help and his support, right, and his guidance. And he told me that him and his wife they'll have like a couple of beers, and then they have really nice chats
Mm.
about stuff that they want to do, or they just the sort of the uninhibiting aspects allows them maybe to just open up to each other about stuff that maybe's been on their mind, that they're waiting for an opportunity. We've all been there, right? You have those, like drinks, and then you just end up having like quite a like maybe like a deeper meaningful, or whatever it might be, right? So yeah, I think it does have a place. But back to your original question, which was, what would you say to someone who thinks they have a problem? It's like I can't tell you if you've got a problem, like,
Yeah.
but you will know if you have a problem. And if your problem isn't a problem enough to go and get help yet, crack the fuck on.
Mm.
Crack the fuck on. And when you get like the people that go into recovery and go to meetings, the way it's referred to is a rock bottom, right? Everybody will have a rock bottom where basically it's just like enough. Like, I am so fucking done that I'm prepared to like wave the white flag, surrender my ego on some level, and ask for help and go to these meetings, which obviously nobody wants to go to a meeting like,
Yeah.
hi, I'm here, and it's cups of tea and polyester cups and like shitty biscuits, and you have to chat about what the fuck's going on with you. But actually, you know though that place for me was such an incredible stepping stone into where I am now. And I really, really had a rock bottom. I'd had like 2 weekends over the summer of 2017. When I say weekends, I mean like 3 days where I didn't sleep a wink. One was in Manchester, one was a festival in tramlines in Sheffield, and I just came back from both. Not sleeping for 3 days and just doing cocaine will just leave you just absolutely fried. And if you've got any kind of responsibilities, which everybody has, good luck. So I just kind of was just like, I cannot do this anymore. This is crazy. So, you know, I think that's kind of key. I think, you know you can't really intervene with someone who's got a problem. That's another thing. I think people sometimes make the mistake of thinking that they can take people to rehabs. We've seen this a lot with like celebrities. They get taken by their agents or their managers or their family. Like, there's an intervention, and they put them in a rehab, like the Priory or whatever. What do? They come out and they just fucking crack back on. Like, the individual has to get to a point of total surrender. It is that vital first step in recovery, and also in the actual steps of like really surrendering and going like, right, I haven't got this. Because without that, you're not opening yourself up to really learning and growing in terms of like, right, what is actually going on for me here, and bringing that self-awareness in, and then from there, taking actually being able to then take responsibility for the thing.
Mm.
So yeah, it's really interesting. I think because I mean, I always think of there was somebody in our meetings, and I had a friend of mine, and this friend of mine, he approached me and he said, I think I've got a problem, and I know you've been going to these meetings, but my wife really wants me to get help. And then I said it to this guy who was basically like my sponsor's sponsor, so he was almost like an elder within the recovery
Yeah.
circle. And he said, okay, interesting. So what? He said to you that he wants a bit of help because his wife's giving him shit. And I was like, yeah. And he said, all right, cool, leave him the fuck alone. And I was like,
Mm,
what do you mean? And he goes, like, if he wants to get sober for his wife, it is not going to happen.
yeah.
Like, he needs to come back to you when he wants to get sober for himself. Um, so yeah, I think that was quite a like eye opener for me in terms of really understanding, yeah, what was going on, and it does come down to the ego.
Yeah, it reminds me of that quote, like the pain of change has to be, you have to want the pain of change versus the pain staying the same because your life has got so fucking miserable that
Yeah,
like still staying the same and doing the same shit is just not an option anymore.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And there's another good one, which is like pain is the touchstone of growth.
Mm,
So, like, again, like going into that meeting was painful for me. Like, I was a successful dude. I'd managed to maintain my career. I was what you call like a highly functioning addict.
yeah,
Um, in so many areas of my life, I had it together. I owned my apartment. I was part of a startup business, and I was their sales guy, and I'd helped grow that. And I had, clients spending lots of money with me. So on the surface, I was a very capable human being. But in this one area of my life, like I didn't, I just, yeah, I was fucked, and I didn't have it at all. Um, and so I knew going into a room a load of addicts, and some of these people were like proper crackheads, right? Or like there was just like a very diverse mix of people. There were people who had very corporate jobs, and people who were like taxi drivers or like in the trade or whatever. Very very mixed bag. It's not discriminatory. Addiction, it affects all people, colors, creeds, whatever backgrounds. um but that was a painful thing for me to do, but I knew that the pain of doing that was less
yeah.
than continuing on this path, because actually what I'd come to the realization is that sooner or later my heart was going to pop. Like,
Mm,
I was going to, this was going to kill me, because I'd had moments where I'd done too much, and I was looking at myself in the mirror, and I didn't feel good, and my heart rate was jacked, and I knew I'd done a lot of drugs. And then it was kind of coming to an end. And then I would start to sort of feel quite like anxious. And so then and then I'd have to go for a walk to try and calm myself down. But that was really kind of terrifying. In fact, I think I was quite close to having kind of panic attacks, which I've experienced since then. Funny enough, um, I've experienced those, yeah, without like ravaging myself with cocaine, but I have actually experienced those when I haven't been looking after myself terribly well. Um, but they feel like heart attacks coming on. And so, it was really scary to me. I'd actually got to the point where I was like, do I want to live anymore?
mm.
Like, and if I do, well, then I need to just, get over the fact that I just need to go to this awful place and just crack on and just do some really painful stuff in terms of like having a close look at myself, and then just doing the work, doing kind of whatever people said or whatever people suggested. Um, so yeah, it is about a trade-off of what's more painful to you, you
What
know.
what what do you think them like weekend benders and even weekday benders were giving you that was missing in your life?
I think like it was like abandon. So I was constantly switched on and constantly, it was like BlackBerry culture, right? What an awful invention that was. So, and I had clients like in the Middle East, I had clients in Latin America. So I could be on and I could be doing, and I was a sales guy. So I was always in the hunt for, I had undiagnosed ADD. So I was constantly seeking out dopamine. So it was like the thrill of closing that next deal or moving that deal further on. So my brain was just constantly on. And I think, I've learned since then about the brain, and our brain waves have different frequencies. So we've got like beta, alpha, then there's like theta. So there's ones which are, and if you imagine the brain waves, this is what I talked about at Lewis's adherence amplifier event. So when you're like really problem solving and really active, the frequency has very short, close together spikes. It's kind of
Hmm.
whereas when we're almost in a like sleep state, which is the other end of the spectrum, it's like really gradual, nice, more wavy, wider curves. And if you spend too much long in one state, you're just frying yourself. Um, and you haven't got a chance to rest, so your nervous system can't move into like a parasympathetic state. You're going to constantly feel stressed as a result. You know, your cortisol is going to be jacked. You're going to feel anxious. You know, you're not even going to digest food properly. All these sort of things that are going to, are going to be quite harmful to you. So I think the only way I knew how to turn all that off was obliteration.
Yeah.
Was just like, right, I'm just going to go to like, yeah, it's just was total abandonment and just for 3 days just go, I'm checking out. I'm just, um, so since then I've learned, other more healthy ways to like relax, like look after myself and my nervous system, like go for a walk. Who'd have thought that? Um, like go out in nature, go for a run. And I actually try to do a lot of these things now without like headphones in,
Yeah.
because I think what people maybe don't realize is that going for a walk, if you've got headphones in, you're listening to a podcast, right? Who doesn't like to do that, especially if you're listening to School of Fitness podcast? But like, that is your brain is still then processing, it's still thinking and doing. Um, so in order to experience these other states, you actually have to take that out, really disconnect. So I think that was it. It was the disconnection. I was
Mm.
just disconnecting from the world, my responsibilities, my brain, this brain that like, whether it's the ADD or not, I mean, like, it's a lot to do with the ADD. It's just monkey mind. It's just like constant. It's just like Jesus, shut the fuck up, man.
Mm.
Um, and if I did enough blow and did enough booze, it would
Yeah.
just quiet that noise. Um, so yeah, and I know all that now. But I didn't know that at the time. But that was why. Yeah, that
Yeah.
was why. I was just like obliterating, yeah, obliterating myself,
Did you
escaping.
did you think the ADD diagnosis really helped to shape that recovery as well because you had more of an understanding of why you are?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, totally. I think that was the biggest thing that it helped me with is reframe this stuff that was going on. So suddenly I had a I could understand it. I could put it into context of because unfortunately, this stuff that was going on for me before, I didn't have anything to put it down to. So sadly, I would put it down to the fact one, I was a freak. Two, I wasn't like, smart or like I didn't my brain there was something something wrong with me.
Mm.
So that narrative is obviously a really unpleasant narrative, and probably also that maybe had a lot to do with me not feeling very secure, despite having a successful career and all this kind of stuff. Like I didn't feel secure. I felt like I had a bit of a point to prove. And so yeah, it sort of allowed me to kind of just understand, oh right, okay, so that my brain does, I'm just, it's just a neurodivergent thing. And then um, now living somewhere like Brighton, where probably like everybody within a square, 5 mile radius of me is fucking, ADD and actually I think we're gonna see more and more people. I think it actually what all the stuff I've read about ADD is that, and the theory that I kind of tend to resonate most with is that actually this is just an evolution of the human brain, that like more and more kids are actually just going to be born with it. And I think that's because we're bombarded with lots of stimuli and lots of stressors, and stressors are also, like things that basically can distract us, right? So devices, stimulation from wherever it might be, um, and that means our brains are kind of the dopamine pathways are of course they are, they're going to change and they're going to develop differently. So I think there's a lot more solidarity and a lot more understanding around it. And, I can meet people all the time who have it, and we can laugh about our own little idiosyncrasies and how they manifest in life. Um, so yeah, that was a big thing. But also I think, because the first thing they do, funnily enough, when you get diagnosed with ADD, is they go, "Do you want to take this?" And it's like, "Well, what's that?" And it's like, "Oh, it's Ritalin or Elvance, the quick release or slow release." And it's like, "Well, yeah, but what's in that?" And it's like, "Well, it's amphetamines." And it's like, "Oh, is that why I've been seeking that out every fucking weekend?" It's like, so like that was quietening my brain, which the pharmacological, whatever that word is, like solution, as far as modern medicine deems it, is to give people, amphetamines.
Mm.
Um, so um, so yeah, I think that did help me to just move beyond. I'm not a freak. There isn't really anything wrong with me. I'm just much more highly evolved than everyone else.
And you said, and I remember, I know you said also on the podcast that I listened to that you felt like you were almost addicted to stress.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Yeah, it's addicted to stress, addicted to drama, anything that kind of, yeah, I guess, like, yeah, it made me sort of feel um alive, really. I think when you're operating up in that kind of like frequency of just like everything's jangly and it's all just
Mm.
like brrrr, you can get, it's very discombobulating to come out of that. You almost might feel a bit um guilty, like, you see this a lot with people who are really busy, like people who are like workaholics, right, which is
Yeah,
the other kind of like addiction, right? To like sit still and just do nothing
so
is
hard.
like really hard for them.
Yeah.
And the reason is because, you need to train this stuff. It's like the same with our fitness and our health, our nervous system. It needs to be trained to and encouraged to kind of know how to move between, states, and actually move into, a parasympathetic state. Because although that's like a unconscious thing, a subconscious thing, we don't have any. Like, I can't say now move into a parasympathetic state. Like I can say move this arm, right? But we can do things if we know what they are, to then help produce that autonomic response of like
Mm.
moving into um, a, a parasympathetic state. I've lost my train of thought a little bit there. What your
Well,
question
no,
was?
like I really resonate with that because even when you were saying about like right going for a walk or going for a hike, like I remember this happened to me only 2 weeks ago where I drove up to the mountains. I love like that's where I go to, after like chaos,
Mm,
go to the mountains, big open space. It's where I'll relax my nervous system. But I would have a podcast or music in, and my the battery died. And when I got up there, and I
mm.
was like, I was nearly having a freak out. The fact that I was going for a walk without, I was like, oh my god, now I have to listen to my own thoughts. Do you know what I mean? And I was like, it's so funny. Like people will call like discipline like, oh, that person's able to work really hard, that person's able to train, that person's able to, blast out load of tasks. But get that person to try and relax and do nothing. Like that's difficult. Like
Yeah,
but
yeah.
you can't sell that as, or it's
Mhm.
hard, it's a harder sell, but it's probably what I would imagine it's what most of the population right now need is more
Yeah,
of
yeah.
that than more of grind harder, work harder.
Yeah, totally. I had exactly the same thing the other day with like this Garmin watch. I was going for a run and I wanted to listen to something. And so I was trying to load the bloody music on, and I was like, what? I was like, why won't it go on the watch? And I was getting, because I'm eating into then my running time, my
Yeah.
allotted, exercise time. Like, how mad is that? And then I suddenly realized that, oh, I know why the music's not loading onto my watch, is because it's not the watch that allows you to load music onto.
Mm.
Like, so for like 10, 15 minutes, like I was trying to do something where the functionality didn't exist, and I was getting really irritated. And I think that what you've touched on there, for me, is like, is this like like immediate kind of gratification versus like delayed gratification. So like delayed gratification doesn't give us dopamine.
Mm.
It actually just gives us the sense of like pride, fulfillment, satisfaction, probably like serotonin, like happiness, whatever. But it doesn't give us dopamine. So but like listening to that, your favorite mix or that nice podcast whilst you go on the run, you're going to get a dopamine fix from that. So
Yeah.
soon, or like in your case, yeah, going for that walk and then looking forward to this. And then your brain goes, hang on, we were so close to getting that reward. Like, why aren't we getting that
Mm.
reward? And I think that's where like frustration comes in. And I think that's quite easy to sell to people, isn't it? It's like, have this fucking donut, or like, buy these new sneakers, or go on this holiday, right? As soon as you even book the holiday, you get a dopamine
Yeah.
release. You're just like, woohoo, I'm excited. Whereas like, meditating every morning for like 6 months so that you feel much more content and you don't overreact in arguments or just to anything. Like, how do you fucking sell that? It's not, you can't bottle it up. You can't, nobody knows like necessarily how that, it's harder to tangibly sort of measure and kind of, but it is something that I think is the crux of this is like, and it's certainly from my own point of view, what I need to basically try and spend a lot of time and try and put a lot of energy. But I find it really, really hard because, I'm a dopamine junkie,
Yeah.
like everybody, but I'm getting a lot better at it. I'm getting a lot better at it. I can take walks and just find some stillness and just watch how my monkey mind just kind of like the monkeys just one by one just jump out my head, and I can just find a bit of stillness, like sitting outside a cafe having a coffee, right? Instead of looking at your phone, put your phone down and
Mm.
just watch the world go by,
Yeah.
and just sit with that, even if it's like 15 minutes, and just see how that feels. I'm getting like a bit tingles now, just like thinking about that. It's just, and yoga, like, or I don't know, anything like, yeah, I think even sort of like reading a book might, I don't know how much of that is like, I think some people, if they're reading fiction, they'll kind of like escape.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think for a lot of us, we're way too stressed. Like life, is like difficult, it's challenging and especially for like a lot of people. If you've got kids and big mortgage and this kind of thing. Um, and so I think it's just gonna keep getting worse. And I think, yeah, from people's health and fitness point of view, that's often the thing that, actually they need help with the most, is just kind of reducing some of the stress. I mean, even like hiring somebody to take that responsibility away from you. It's like you've got enough, shit on your plate. Like, but this is really important. If you can afford it, it's a really good investment because your health and fitness will be the thing that gets deprioritized, first. I think, we see that like time and time again. I know even for me, it's the first thing, that I will because again, it's like a delayed gratification
Hmm.
thing.
Hmm.
Like I'm going through this run because I'm improving my cardiovascular fitness and I've got an event in that X amount of months. But or I could just go and work and I could answer that email and try and get a new client on board, and that's going to give me a little dopamine hit, and so that will always win in that moment. It will always win, unless you can go, oh no, but hang on, like this is important because in X amount of years or X amount of months, like we're going to feel much better for it.
Do you,
You
do
know?
you do you find that with clients that come on board with you, it's like because you might have someone who comes on board who fits that category of is always on the go, is working really hard, is constantly getting that dopamine hit, and is maybe burnt out, their nervous system is fried, and now they think that the solution is for you to put them in the gym maybe 4 or 5 times a
Wow.
week and add on to that stress that they already have. Where in reality, it's like you're actually trying to pull back for them so they can recharge almost to be
Yeah,
able to do that.
I haven't. I'm still quite new into this industry, so like I've only been um qualified for like 2 3 years and then doing sort of online coaching for like I guess like year and a half. But as I say, because of my previous like success, I'm in a fairly lucky position that like I can take my time with it in terms of like growing it. but I do. I actually haven't had any clients like that who fit that bill. But I think if somebody did come on board, I know, like some of our industry colleagues have these clients who they have really busy lives. And I think they hire a coach because it's like a box to tick. And
Yeah.
again, maybe it's also like a bit of a fashion statement.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I've got a coach, I've got a PT too, because I'm a high flying lawyer in the city and all my colleagues do. So I have to
Mm,
have one.
yeah.
So, and then the coaches get really frustrated because they're like, this person isn't doing anything. And it's
Mm.
like, well, maybe they just want to be able to, they just want to say in the bars that they've got a coach. And you're like, maybe you should just keep taking their money if they're that stupid. But like, but I think if I had somebody who, yeah, I think that there's two things, like one, signposting somebody to like, I guess like, yeah, like therapy or doing something that would help them to get in a better position to actually do the work
Yeah.
if they're actually physically not doing the work. Or yeah, just tell them, like, do them a favor and go, like, I'm really sorry, like you're wasting my time and yours. I did actually have a client that I had to, yeah, I've had some clients where I've had to have difficult conversations with them, where I basically got to a point where they're actually becoming an energy draw on me,
Mm.
and I've had to sort of then get to a place where I'm like this is actually hurting me now,
Hmm.
like their lack of their inability to do the work and put in the action is actually a major drain on me. And so I just have to just have a conversation and say, look, and actually I think that's the best thing that we can do for people like that, because maybe a little seed will get planted, and then on their future journey that I might have actually had a really positive impact on them,
Yeah.
where they actually go, oh yeah, do you know what? Like next time I hire a coach, I'm not going to do that, because it felt really embarrassing to be told basically you're fucking fired.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
like I'm not like I don't need your fucking money. Like you're like, and I don't need to be your fashion accessory. Like, see you later sort of thing.
Yeah.
But I haven't really had anybody. I think because I'm attracting people that um I'm 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 attracting people that don't necessarily fit into that mold.
Hmm.
I'm kind of attracting people that are already starting to get it. Like, right, I know that I worked too hard or I partied too hard, and now I am actually open to working with somebody who is also a yoga teacher and speaks to things that maybe not all fitness coaches speak to, because people in their 40s, 50s, their priorities are unique, and they're shifting in a unique way. And it's not about getting a six pack. It's just like, I just want to get up in the morning and not ache. I'm getting frustrated with my changing body. And also, I always think of that like Top Gun quote, my body is like cashing checks that my ego can't write anymore. Like,
Very
uh,
good. I
oh,
like that.
like, and like, and they've just got to the point where they're like, I'm ready. I've already started this kind of move a little bit. So they're really open to like, change.
Mm. So, what was the moment when, like, health and fitness and wellness and all this stuff became a career for you rather than just a hobby or your self development?
Mm. Well, to be honest, it wasn't really even like, it was like when I was younger and I was a teenager, I was pretty active and I was like a keen runner. I used to represent my county, yada, yada, yada. But that was like when I was a teenager. I think most people, we're really active when we're kids and we're
Yeah.
young. Um, And then that all took a major backseat when I went to uni, and like, weed came along, and then my 20s partying, blah, blah, blah. But then when I got sober, I mean, before then, actually, I was really trying to get into the gym, because actually I was starting to become really frustrated with how I looked. And when you drink, 20 pints a week, like, yeah, no shit, like you're gonna, changes are gonna happen. Um, but then so I was going to the gym, and I was like trying to, I guess it was just really about vanity then. It was just
Mm.
about, probably it was just about getting women. But then when I went sober, you got all this time, like, and money, and yeah, like time. You're getting up early in the morning.
Yeah.
So I invested in a really good gym. I don't know if you had like Third Space in
Mhm.
London. So like banging gym, like I really actually miss that place. So I used to just go there and just hang out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and so I was spending a lot of time in there. And then at the same time, I was seeing a career coach because I'd exited my sales job for this like business which ran conferences. And I was really trying to figure out what I wanted to do next. Actually, quite laughably, at one point I was like, can I just make money through Instagram? But I think in my head I was basically like, can I be an influencer? Like, how deluded was I? And my sister like works in like social media marketing, and she was literally like, okay, Bruce, like, what's your thing? And I was like, well, what do you mean, what's my thing? And she was just like, do you even know anything about influencers? I was just like, no, but like, am I not a bit entertaining and stuff? And she was
Yeah,
just like,
you would
yeah.
be an influencer that I would advocate for, to be honest.
Well, funny enough, because I used to get this thing when I was in the office, I would like go on these mad little like I'd basically just like do a little like show for I'd just start, I don't know, just being a prat, like class clown. That was the thing that was always on my report, and that's never changed. And I'm just basically like an attention seeker. But so and people in the office would be like, Bruce. And this is going to sound really arrogant, but they would be like, Bruce, you should have your own fucking TV show. Like,
Yeah,
you're ridiculous. And, it wasn't like a sort of like, you should be like
yeah,
Brad
just
Pitt. It was more like, can we laugh at you?
yeah,
Like, yeah, on T.
tongue in cheek kind of comment.
Yeah, yeah. And so I remember thinking, like, yeah, like, I'm not really cut out for this corporate environment. I do sort of need. So anyway, so I kind of was like entertaining these fantasies and having this career coaching and like, and I liked the idea of going into as a being a trainer or some kind of coach because we'd had people come into our business who'd helped us with sales. They trained us on the theory and human behavior and psychology. And I remember my brain really lighting up and being like,
Mm.
this is really cool. But also from the point of view of like, I really liked these coaches. I was quite envious of them. I'm like, you're coming in here, you get to tell us how to do our jobs better, but you don't actually have to be the corporate dudes doing the job. You just go around from business to business, you travel and you meet people, all the things that basically I like. But what I didn't like was like the spreadsheets and the targets and the meetings about meetings. So like, so then, and I was doing all this exercise, seeing this career coach, discussing all these things. And then it just clicked one day where I was just like, I'm spending all this time in the gym, like I'm really enjoying this. And then I was just like, I could just do that. Like I can just do that. So I decided to requalify as a PT. And I'm really, really glad I did. And I'm really glad that my niche is kind of, 40, 50-year-olds because I get a lot of comments from people, which is so nice. Because when I first came into the industry, I had such imposter syndrome. I
Yeah.
was just like, this is a young man's game. Who the fuck is going to want to get fitness advice from someone who's like a former addict, who's like in his 40s? But I get all these comments where I'm just like, I'm so pleased you're here, dude. Because like if I get patronized and told like what I
Yeah.
should be doing by a 20 something year old any fucking more, I'm going to go mad. And like, so yeah, so that was a really long-winded answer to your question. Yeah, that was basically like the journey into it. Yeah, and I'm really pleased that I've kind of finally found something which is quite authentically me. I think basically my previous career was to try and like please my parents. I think I had this
Mm.
idea of what success was, and it was just like, making money and having a successful business and but it wasn't quite me. It wasn't quite authentically me. So yeah, I'm really pleased. Plus I get to like meet people like you. I get to work with people like you. It's fucking brilliant.
Yeah, I love that because I know so many trainers, especially around my area, who like had previous work and they might have got into the fitness industry in their late 30s, early 40s and stuff like that, and they become the best trainers in the gym, like because like not only like they've life experience for one, so like I don't really buy into the like you have to have a certain amount of years experience in the fitness industry to for that to push you in certain categories of how good you are at your job or anything like that. Like what is coaching? It's just, do you know what I mean, it's being able to interact with humans and be able to get them to do the behavior change that they want to do, like. And I don't think that you need to be starting off as a 16-year-old in the gym and to have 10 years experience by 26 but still not be able to relate to someone who's in their 40s or their 50s and in midlife. Like, a lot of people just won't be able to resonate with that.
Yeah. And I think that was like my experience with like when I was in the gym. So when I was talking about, when I first really was like going to the gym and basically I was trying to get like, it was just on a vanity project. I
Mm.
worked with PTs and they're all in their early 20s. And there's not a single time when I felt I could maybe open up to them about, oh, by the way, like I'm
Yeah.
also like doing quite a lot of like coke and like
Yeah, yeah,
booze at the weekend. I wonder if that's damaging my progress
yeah,
because I was just like, what's that guy? What am I expecting from that guy? He's like chiseled.
yeah.
He's like 20 something. There's no way he sniffed a line of gear off the top of a cistern in a dodgy bar. Like, absolutely no way. So, what's he going to do? He's just going to turn around and, like, he might give his opinion, which is like, well, that doesn't sound like healthy behaviors. But, like, that's not what I need. It's like, yeah, no shit. But what I need, like, a lot of my clients who I've met, because I'm so upfront about it all on my Insta, they sit down with me and we talk, and it's almost like they can't wait to tell me. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, by the way, I used to be a real knob and I used to do all this stuff, and it's just like, cool, like me too, like, but so that's good. Like we're in a safe space and we can like just like open up about that and own that. That's cathartic in itself. But then also, I think that gives people a lot of comfort in the fact that, like, yeah, I can talk to Bruce about this stuff on a level, and he's gonna, yeah, he's gonna have like a level of relatability, and then and that just helps to find sort of solutions because I would have found lots of solutions, lots of things that ways that it didn't work, and lots of ways that it did work, and they're not necessarily all things that you can find in a book.
Mm.
Um, but also, I can just, I think, empathize as well as like sympathize with people, and not just give like my opinion, actually give like advice based on real world transitioning from one place to another, which doesn't necessarily mean aesthetics. It also means like, avoiding chasing, for example, like this ideal body and straying into like dysmorphia, like actually kind of getting uh really clear on like what it is that we want to achieve and why that's important. And it's not because I want to look buff in Ibiza around the pool. It's like because I've got kids and I want to kick a football around with their kids. And so these are things that, yeah, I mean, I don't have children, so I can't, that's where my empathy kind of like, or my ability to relate does end. But I do have, I know what it feels like to be in a 40-year-old, something-year-old's body,
Mm.
and slowing down the metabolism, how much easier it is to put on weight, aches and pains, and just also just getting to that point in your life where you're just like, holy shit, like, I'm not immortal,
Mm.
like, and actually, suddenly facing the prospect, we look at our parents, they're getting to a certain age, maybe they're getting a bit ill, or, we're seeing them slow down. That I think that's a big thing for lots of people like my age, around my age, where they're like, shit, I'm getting this little window into the future.
Mm.
And like, I don't want to make these mistakes. I want to put in what can I do now to maybe help me avoid, what I'm seeing my parents go through, sort of thing. Um, so yeah, it is like a relatability thing. Plus, we can just have a fucking good laugh about how great the '90s were and how strong the pills were, and jungle music and just great shit like
I think
that.
that's such a good point as well. Even like because everyone has their kind of hidden pain that pushes them towards making some sort of change, and like obviously when you're a young lad, it's the pain of being rejected by a girl is so much that I got to make sure that I can get in shape so someone pays attention to me. Whereas like in your 40s or your 50s, it might be like, okay, you're seeing your parents get older, you're seeing them lose their independence, you're seeing your own mortality as well, and it's like, oh my god, shit, like maybe I'm thinking about death for the first time, like really, like I don't think anybody, I think people don't really think about death often enough, I don't think, or they don't think
No.
about it in depth, and maybe they do once or twice, and if they really do, it really starts to bring up questions of how they want to live their life, and it can be a scary thing, but I think it's a real pain motivator for people to be like, okay, let me get my shit in order, whatever that looks like.
Yeah, and I think actually, usually the catalyst though is always like something like, it's like an extrinsic motivator. So it's
Mm,
something like, oh, my belly's really big,
yeah.
or like, I just don't like the look of my body when I see it in the mirror, right? So that's like an external thing in terms of how I'm being perceived. But actually, what's lying underneath that often is like these intrinsic motivators, which is, yeah, things like I want to play football with my grandkids. And yeah, like you say, and my own, it's kind, and also like my own mortality, that's kind of like an intrinsic thing. And yeah, people don't think about that enough. Why? Because it's too far in the future. And it's, again, it's just not something that people, it's not enjoyable to think about. But I know it's not like there, it's not so much like there in our faces. So, when working with clients, that's why getting clear on the why, not just like the external motivators, but also these intrinsic ones, and just taking a moment to kind of like really get those down on paper, get clear on those, because those are the things that actually, once the belly goes, why are you going to still do that thing? Well,
Mm.
because we've got these other like really beautiful reasons. Um, and I think I try and bring that into people's psyches so that, yeah, they stay the course, and they've got a variety of motivations, a variety of reasons that they're kind of clear on in terms of doing this stuff and going forward. Because it's hard and it is boring at times. So you got to make sure, right? Fucking hell, what I got to have a few reasons, like why am I doing this, and then one will gravitate, and you'll be like, right, cool, I'm off and running again.
Has recovery, because we never really spoke about even the importance of community in your recovery and stuff like that. Has from this kind of journey into the health and fitness space and into the person you are now, has it changed your circle slightly? Has it changed your relationships? Has it changed how you show up in relationships?
Yeah, definitely, definitely. I think. Because I'm no longer doing things necessarily for other people so much, I'm doing things more for me. I
Yeah,
kind of am a bit more impervious to like people's judgment. It's
yeah.
just like, I realize now my changes, the reason why they're difficult for people is because it feels threatening to them. It holds a mirror up to like,
Mm.
shit that they're not doing. So I've kind of got, okay, with that, my community now, I have a community of like fitness coaches, right, that I get to like touch base with and feel connected to and part of, which is amazing. And by the way, there's like more wreckhead party people in our industry than I fucking ever realized. Like, I'm just like, oh my God, you too, like, oh, amazing. So that's really nice. And then also, yeah, I do feel now, I think this is part of identity shifting. I think like I used to really hate, again, it's that holding the mirror. I used to really hate fitness people. Like, I would still be up, coming home, and there'd be joggers, and I'd just be like, ah, fuck, your life sucks. But now that's me. And like, and actually, like, the reason why I hated those fuckers is because, yeah, they were holding up a mirror to something that I just didn't want to kind of like see, which is like, yeah, shit, like, like that I should be doing more of that kind of stuff. So I feel it's, I go to the gym now, and like I can, fist bump with people, and yeah, I think that's really, really important. And I think that's kind of like I think that's something that's like the holy grail, I think, for a lot of people in terms of getting in those environments and kind of feeling comfortable in there. And you should feel comfortable, because ultimately these places, especially if they've curated the environment and they're not just, exclusive bodybuilder places that just
Mhm.
feel very like, barriers to entry. But if they're nice spaces, which, a lot of gyms are, um, if you think about it, everybody's there for the same fucking reason, which is just to like improve their lives. And there's amazing solidarity in that. And when you chip away at people's posteriors, they're like, fuck you, I'm using this machine. And I'm sure actually, when you actually like venture out of your and maybe talk to them or ask them to spot you, or just start, like, you'll find that actually they're really helpful. Doesn't matter if you're new to the gym, and you'll find that you have more in common with those people than you think. You're all there just ultimately to do exercise better and to improve. So yeah, I found my little, yeah, communities. I've started like running, so I've got friends who are like trying to get me into like trail running. But even that, I'm just like, wow, like trail runners, they're a peculiar breed. But then I'm kind of curious. I'm like, I kind of there's something like a bit enticing about this. Like, and then I'll be a trail runner and I'll just laugh at how I used to think trail runners were fucking like nutcases, and now I'm one of them. So
Yeah, that reminds me. I hate to bring everything back to a meme, but it reminds me of there's one where it's like, for those of you who party too hard in the '90s, how's your half marathon training going, or how's that bit 300 kilometer hike that you're doing going?
I mean, like, runners high, like if I could put that into a pill, like fuck me, like I'd be rich. Because there's no come down from it.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like you have it, and then you might even still just have a nice residual high. Like running has been like a massive I used to, like say, I used to do it when I was like young, and I'd forgotten how great it was. Like you're outdoors. I do find it weird how people nod at you and wave at you. I'm like, what's that about? Like other runners. When I first went out, I was just like, why is everyone fucking waving at me? And I was like, oh, it's like a runner's thing. It's like hi, you're a runner, I'm a runner. We've got to wave at each other. Like, and now I'm doing it. I'm just like, hi, runner.
It's a little
When you're a
nod. It's a little
cyclist,
nod of respect.
it is, it
You
is,
know,
it is, it is.
we're better than everyone. Look at us out running.
It's a smug. It's the smug nod. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um. So yeah, and like that runners high, and what it does for my mental health as well. Like how it just sends all those nice chemicals to my brain, and I think also like it helps me clear my head of shit, and I don't have to think about work, and I'm outside, and so actually somebody was telling me, get this. So like with ADD, they do this like therapy. I forget what it's called, where basically like your eyes move like really quickly, and it's supposed to like release kind of like this like this overstimulation thing, and just center us and make us. And apparently, when you're running, because your eyes are moving and from sort of side to side, periphery, and you're kind of
Mm.
processing information at speed as you're moving, it has the equivalent therapeutic effect. So maybe that's also why I'm just feeling a hell of a lot better, and my sort of ADD seems to like
Mm.
calm, calm down. I mean, it does calm down with activity because obviously, yeah, I'm like drain. ADD people can be quite high energy. They can also be quite low energy, but they can also be quite high energy and a bit chaotic, and can get overwhelmed and overstimulated. And so exercise is actually a really good way to just like release all that shit. So you come back to sort of your default state is one of a bit more calm. Anyway, yeah. So it's kind of like a cool little piece of information I learned. But again, like I wouldn't be talking to people about this stuff
Mm.
um, had I not got into exercise and made it such a part of my life. And then you just kind of like you learn from people, and your knowledge and your experience grows. And I think that's a wonderful thing, because those things will then stay with you for the rest of your life.
What does for those listening who are in midlife or coming up to midlife, like what does midlife well lived look like to you?
Mm. Nice question. And I want to answer that with like strength train, because sarcopenia makes your muscles like,
It's
and all that kind of stuff, right? Which like I think
true,
like
but yeah.
it is true. And but I think like a lot of people, I always think like, a lot of people know intellectually, they know,
Hmm.
so we don't need to be on this podcast to tell them like, eat healthier, move more, blah, 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 right?
Yeah.
But actually I think like it's being it's being mindful of like how many pillars there are of health, and how, like, I know you're into this, and so social is a pillar of our health, like having healthy human connections. So
Mhm.
I mean, this is going to sound really weird, but like one of the things that I have as my weekly must do things, and it's sad that I need to remind myself, I need to have it on my to-do list, but it is, again, because I just get so sucked into work or whatever the thing that's giving me dopamine.
Mm.
And actually I do need to be reminded to step back and what is important. So one of my weekly like non-negotiables is I just put like family friend time. So that means
Yeah.
picking up the phone to someone, or arranging to meet someone, or whatever, just like making sure that my social health pillar is healthy, like is like charged up. So I think it's just kind of looking at health overall, and like looking at all the things. So you know with my programs, I've worked with coaches and it fucking like it just I still can't believe, but like I work with coaches and they give me like, program strength training and I'm like, cool. Like, where's the like, are there any like warm-ups and stuff that you want me to be doing, or any like stretches and like little drills for like mobility that you want me to do? And it's just like, no, just fucking back, just do some warm-ups on the back squat and then just fucking jump into it. And I'm just like, okay. But like, with my clients, I kind of there are like certain yoga poses, for example, not like major ones, but just little ones that I put into the end of their workouts, which will not just stretch, but also will just help uh they have like calming properties. They might like stimulate the vagus nerve. So I'm thinking of like a recline twist, which kind of stretches a lot of the body.
Mm.
But you're lying down, so you're at the end of your workout. It induces a little bit of a state of calm, but also it'll just help them come back to homeostasis, right? So they're not all flustered, and so when they leave the gym, they're kind of like calm. But all these things, I think, for me, have been important things as part of making sure I feel more healthy in terms of an over. So I think that's where I kind of try and help people. So even the things that we touched on in this podcast, going outside, going for a walk. I'm not one of those people who's like, get your fucking 10,000 steps in.
Hmm.
I'm like you should be active, but also if I can maybe make a suggestion when you are going for a walk, if you're open to it, take your headphones out or like go to a place of nature and just see, just like maybe you don't feel relaxed, in which case come back to me and I'm happy to be told, it doesn't work for you. But, um, I think most people will say, yeah, I don't know why, but that just made me feel really good. And it's like, well,
Mm.
cool. Isn't that what ultimately we're trying to, work towards? So yeah, it's kind of just thinking about every nearly everybody comes to me. I give them certain boxes to check. What do you want to achieve? And nearly everybody ticks, improve overall health. And obviously what I discern from that is like, right, okay, it's not just about getting in the gym. Like we need to look at what the areas of your life are that maybe you could do with a bit of help and support. And let's just see what like little behavior change or what little action points we can introduce to kind of like help you with that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's such a good point. Even on the walking side of things, it's like there's such a difference between going out for a walk to wind down versus going out for a walk to tick off a box of 10,000 steps.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And like walking after a meal, right? I
Mm.
really like um walking after a meal because, if I can eat a lot of food, I'm a greedy bastard. So I tend to have quite like a big plate of food. And everybody knows that like 3 p.m. coma, right? Like, oh, you just like hit a wall. And and also I just don't like feeling like groggy and like a bit heavy. So like going for a walk after a meal, I try and do after every meal, even if it's just like 20, 30 minutes, which really helps the digestive process, really was, and kind of like, I think does something to your, glycemic index. It helps to kind of just like, yeah, as part of digesting it, it just sort of stops you from having these crashes and spikes and kind of energy. Um, so, little things like that, if I can help people, yeah, and that improves their overall energy for the day, then it gives them maybe more energy to put into whatever else that is on their fucking in their busy lives.
Bruce, let's wrap this up. Where can people go if they want to reach out about coaching, or they just want to follow up with the work you do?
Ah, sweet man. So I've got a website which is actually under review at the moment. So it's like being updated. That's www.statera-fitness.com. Sorry that Statera doesn't roll off the tongue. I was trying to be really clever when I came up with a business name. It's Statera. That's Latin for balance because I thought I was being really clever. Or you can just find me. Yeah, you can just search like Bruce Coach. You should find me that way. I'm statera.fitness on Instagram. Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll leave it in the show notes so people can find your account. And Bruce, it's been a pleasure. Folks, this has been the Uneducated PT podcast with me, your host, Carl O'Rourke. I told you that Bruce was very wise. And if you're watching on YouTube, I told you that he's very handsome as well. So, Bruce, thank you very much for today, mate. It's been a great conversation.
You're too kind. Nice one, Carl.